So it's been another hard week for me. I'm getting an idea now that I'm tracking my symptoms and my feelings more frequently that it takes about 2 weeks for me to recover from any kind of major stress, whether it's a combination of small stresses or if it's one big one. And I'm just talking about like an individual event, not just long-term stuff. So I've had low energy the last couple weeks with a few spots of normalcy, or what feels like me feeling more like myself, like I can do more. All that to say, that's why I've only done about like one video a week. It feels like by the time Sunday rolls around, I am ready to do something, even if it's not very complicated. The video I wanted to make this week was inspired by a conversation I had in a Facebook group. It's a parenting Facebook group for parents of neurodivergent children. I'll include the link to that Facebook group in my description. The conversation we had was around burnout, and this parent was just asking some questions about what burnout looked like, and so I started to describe some of what I've gone through and shared with them my video, and it sounded like it was helpful to her to hear what I was sharing as far as some insight, and then also some helpful ways to recover, especially as someone who is PDA. In my last video about burnout, I was clear. I tried to be very open and broad about burnout in that video, saying, you know, this could apply to autistic people, it could apply to non-autistic people or neurotypical people. You know, burnout in and of itself is not a unique phenomenon of someone who's neurodivergent or has health problems or who, you know, is PDA, but these, or has gone through trauma. But this type of, not this type, but I'll just say burnout itself is extremely common in those situations. And so I just wanted to take this a few minutes to focus in on what aspects of PDA are especially impacted by burnout, and how, and give a few ideas about ways to approach it to help with recovery. There is no, in my experience, there's no quick fix. Medications to help with depression, to help with symptoms can be helpful, not always, but there is no shortcutting recovery from burnout. In fact, in some of my friends or acquaintances that I've come to know through the neurodivergent community, if you try to push through burnout, or if you try to ignore its inevitable happening, there are health issues that come into play, and relationship issues, because regulating or keeping yourself in balance is extremely difficult, if not impossible. So it becomes kind of a cascading effect. So I always just try to really promote this idea that this is about taking care of yourself. This isn't about a fix so that you can then go back to doing what you were before, or putting yourself in a situation that was setting you up for failure. This is about listening to yourself and listening to your strengths and listening to your weaknesses, so that hopefully, if you have the ability to create a life that supports you, that you do that and you feel good about it and you don't feel guilty for it. So let's talk about first, what are a couple things for PDAers specifically that can lead to burnout? One of the major ones is structure. So with typical, you know, what people know about autism, structure is very helpful for autistic people, generally speaking. It helps provide safety and security and a sense of, you know, they know what's happening, they know what's coming. When the structure is taken away, it can lead to dysregulation, behavior issues, etc. With PDAers, it's different. Structure actually causes behaviors. Structure creates anxiety. As far as exactly why that's the case, I can just describe how it feels. since they're still doing a lot of studying of PDA. And that's all I really have to pull from, is just sharing how it feels for me and how I've heard it described for others. So for me, what it is, I feel like the autonomy is the issue there. PDA is not only known as demand avoidance, but it is known as a pervasive drive for autonomy. And that drive for autonomy is what gives us structure. So as long as I have the ability to control as much as I can about my choices, my life, what's happening around me, the less anxiety I have, the calmer I feel, and the less likely I'm going to lead to burnout. Jobs, the most successful thing I've had with jobs is jobs that allow me to create my own structure for my my work. What I'm doing here with the YouTube video, my Facebook page, my Instagram is extremely flexible. That's part of why so far it has been working for me. So that is, I just lost my train of thought. So I'm also ADHD, and that happens on occasion. But I think that's the main point, is that structure is not a help. With someone who is PDA, structure actually backfires. Giving as much autonomy is helpful. Next, the other struggle is I don't know that this is a term, a real term, or a term that's used universally at all in the medical community. I'm going to use it. If there's another word, I'll find out later. I'll start using that word instead. But the word I'm going to use is imprint. So oftentimes I feel like PDAers or autistic people find what they consider to be an ideal way of doing something, or the way something should be, and they imprint on that, and that becomes the standard. One struggle with going undiagnosed PDA for too long is you will imprint on ways of living that are actually hurting you. And I mean, that makes sense, because if you're able to mask your struggles, you're gonna just get put through kind of the machinery of neurotypical society. And you've got structure, you've got expectations, you've got deadlines. I mean, normal, I'll say typical, not normal, typical things that people come to expect as they grow up, and even as a child when you go through school. This is part of why I support homeschooling and unschooling for PDA children as being extremely helpful in their not only their productivity, but their self-esteem. Because we are not just our productivity, we are, we're a whole person. So imprinting on an unhealthy lifestyle can be a very big hindrance to us and can lead us to burnout over and over again. So for myself, over and over again, I kept trying to do certain things. For me, it was sales. It was like, oh, I'm going to produce art, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to produce, like, basically anything I could produce, I wanted to sell, but I actually hated selling. So over and over again, I would put myself into this situation that I absolutely hated, but to me, that was what I was supposed to do, and that idea of what I ought to do was driving me, but it was also hurting me. As if you're dealing with somebody or working with somebody who has certain ideas of how something should be done and it's hurting them, my recommendation is to, you can't come at them directly, because PDA will kick in and don't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. But giving suggestions just as passively as possible, like, hey, have you ever thought that maybe this isn't what you enjoy doing? And then opening up the door to other possibilities, respecting if they're not ready for that conversation, backing off if it's not helpful at that time, and trusting that, they're thinking about it. They're thinking about what you said, even if the initial reaction is defensiveness. So that's just another thing that can lead to burnout. One of the unique struggles of, one of the unique struggles with PDA recovery from burnout. So let's assume you identified you're in burnout, or you're recognizing you're burned out. You have decided to do as much as you can to be in a low stress situation. You're recovering. What can happen as a PDA individual is you then, as you start to feel better, your desire to do things will start to come back. But because you're still tired, you can experience internal pushback, I guess I should say. So one of the traits, I'll explain real quick, one of the traits about PDA is it doesn't have to just be external pressures that trigger it. It can be internal as well. And I find that when I'm recovering from burnout, but I'm not really there yet as far as, recharging my big battery as much as I can, then that battle will really wage over, I want to do this thing, but I can't do this thing and I hate it. So, I mean, it's difficult. So you're like, I want to do art, but I hate it and I don't want to do art. I want to go somewhere that I love going, but actually I don't want to. And that real strong tug of war back and forth is very difficult for self-esteem. It can be demoralizing. It can cause some confusion in your mind as far as, who am I even, that I can't even do what I want without feeling, such an intense struggle over it. This is a common occurrence too. People who struggle with depression could relate to that. I feel like it's a little bit different with depression. So depression takes away your desire to do the things you normally love, or one form of depression or a form of depression. I'm trying not to speak in absolutes because, I'm not there. But with PDA, it's this back forth. So I really want to do this thing, especially if you have ADHD. So if you have ADHD, then you're like, oh yeah, I love this. And you can become so excited, but then you realize I don't have the energy to do that. And you're back again. So, or sometimes even further back than you were before. So it's very, very difficult during that time to be careful about what things you pounce on as far as what you try to do. If you're a caregiver of someone who's doing this, or, you're in a trust relationship with someone who's looking for advice or feedback, I would just say, hey, think through this and slow down. Slow down, manage your expectations of yourself. And even saving ideas for the future, I think is a very helpful way to take that inspiration or whatever it is that the desire is there, and start taking notes. Have a notebook. Put them somewhere, and you can feel like you're doing something about what it is, and that it's not just going to waste. That's something that helps me. I'm more artistically minded, so I don't know if it applies to anything else. A couple other just things about burnout that I feel like if you are in it and you're PDA, I am really struggling with this one, but I'm choosing to believe it, and that is learning to trust my instincts. It's very easy to, because of, feeling out of the ordinary, like you're a weirdo and judging yourself, it's very easy to downplay your instincts along the way. And I don't feel like that helps burnout at all. I think it makes it worse, and it makes it go on longer. If anything, I think if there's a good purpose to come out of it, it's to help teach us to trust our instincts more, to listen to, when we can anyway, to listen to, or give ourselves space, I guess, create a life where we have margins to listen to our instincts once we notice that they're telling us something. Find joy in finding a natural rhythm. So if you can find a life that has built-in flexibility in it, that'll allow you to find a rhythm. I like to take each day at a time. I cannot plan ahead of time. Even if I have a good day today or tomorrow, I don't make assumptions about the next day. I don't make assumptions too far out in burnout, because not without telling if anybody else is involved, not without saying, hey, there's a good chance this might not work out. or making sure that they're, that isn't going to hurt someone's feelings or cause damage. But I can't think very far ahead because day to day, I don't know quite what my energy level is going to be. So one day at a time, slowing yourself down, listening to your instincts. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and this was never anything I had to do, but it was an idea I had, and I shared it with my psychologist, and she thought it was a really helpful plan. And that was to create a chart for myself that showed where I was at as far as my energy level. And I think I'm going to work on this and just create a template for people so that they can fill out their own things. But the idea was that like 1 through 4, or maybe 1 through 5, but probably 1 through 4, level 1 being the lowest energy, or 0. I mean, 0 would be institutionalized, so you probably don't need a chart at that point. But level 1 being the somewhat lowest while still independently living, or semi-independent. And then 4 being the most, having the most capability, the most ability to regulate yourself. And then filling in the blanks and then putting it on the wall so that if it's exhausting even to explain yourself, which is a major issue, you can have it pre-made, pre-filled out, let's say during a good day. You can take the time and do that if it doesn't feel like too big of a demand. And then later you can just put down your number. Today I wake up, I'm a level 2. This is what works for me. This is what I struggle with. And then people can they don't even have to ask you. They can just look at it and go, oh, okay, I kind of have an idea of what I could do to help. I felt like that would be a really nice thing because it's very exhausting in burnout to try to explain to people what you need all the time. Main thing is I need to be left alone. I need to be, but other things come up, appointments come up, daily responsibilities. If you have a caregiver or you have someone who's helping you with things, or a spouse, or, family who's trying to help you out. I just felt like it would be so nice to have that kind of already done and then just slap a number up and then people kind of know where you're at. So I think that's the gist of what I wanted to share. Just narrowing down this discussion about burnout into a PDA framework. Maybe these ideas would help other people as well in other situations. But thank you for your time and for listening to me when I'm exhausted, even though maybe it wasn't even noticeable. My eyes are tired though, probably can tell that. Anyway, have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you when I see you.